All right, everybody. How's everybody doing? How are your feet? I know what it's like, the end of the first day. It's a long day. Just stick around if you want to see what is new in Adobe After Effects. We're actually all really excited at the show here this year because for the first time in my memory, I'm here demonstrating shipping versions of the software. In past years, we have always kind of previewed what was coming next, and we kind of would let you know it's coming up soon, and we'd usually ship it about maybe a month, maybe 45 days after NAB. This year, we surprised everybody by shipping a new version of Premiere, Audition, After Effects, new features in team projects, new Adobe Stock features a week before NAB. So what you're going to see me showing here is something that you can go home tonight, go to your Creative Cloud desktop application, go to Apps, and download the latest versions of these applications. Get started using them right away. So pretty excited about that. Jason's right. I am going to be talking a lot about motion graphics templates because that is a big part of what we can now create inside of After Effects. Fantastic new workflows, whether you're working with other motion graphics artists or you need to generate motion graphics for editorial use. There's some great workflows inside of After Effects. But there's actually a lot more. So I'm going to take some time, show you guys some of the smaller features that I think you guys are going to use over and over and over again. This release, because we finally have finished a lot of the underlying work recoding the base of After Effects. If you guys have been following the history of After Effects being 25 years old, we took some time in the last couple of cycles kind of rebuilding the underlying technology, adding in things like GPU acceleration into After Effects in a new way, borrowing from what Premiere Pro does with GPU acceleration. We have kind of multi-threaded the application, making it really interactive, high level of performance, and now we get the ability to build on top of that. So with this release, one of the first things we wanted to do is look at what people were asking us for, take some of the top feature requests from After Effects users and build them into the application. So I'm going to start with the small stuff, and then we'll build up to what we can do with motion graphics at the very end. So to get started, very simple change that's been made. We're starting to see more and more people needing to create compositions at 120 frames per second. I've got a few broadcasters that have been wanting to do this. They want to create, because the mathematics actually work out for 4K 120. If you need to downsample that, you can create a master graphic, and it kind of works for everything. You can use it for 60, you can use it for 24. But After Effects couldn't do that. What was the maximum frame rate of a comp in After Effects for years? 99. We thought 99, no one's ever going to want to go above 99. Well, they did, and so now we've changed it. So here you can see I have a preset for 120, but just to future-proof this, we bumped it by an order of magnitude. It now goes to 999 frames per second. So we think we're safe for at least a few years. I don't know, VR, they keep talking crazy talk about 8K per eye, and we'll find out. But at least for now, we're safe. We can now work with that. One of the biggest things, how many times a day do you guys draw masks? And every time you draw a mask, you then have to go in and change the type of mask. Is it an additive, subtractive mask, a difference mask? It's usually multiple steps. Wouldn't it be great if you could do it all in one step? That's where we're going with After Effects. Now, I've got a composition here. I'm actually going to delete this mask from the last time I did this. And I've got an adjustment layer here. And this adjustment layer's got a box blur applied to it. And I just want to blur everything but the house. Now, drawing a mask in the past meant I would draw the mask. Now it's doing the wrong thing. Now I have to come down here and I have to change it. What we've done in the latest release, when you go to draw a mask, if you use your keyboard, the keyboard shortcut for an additive mask, we made it simple. A. Subtractive, any guesses? S, D, F. Each of the different keyboard shortcuts, I can go through and I can change what type of mask, what mode the mask is in before I even let go of the mouse. So if you think about the amount of times that you do this on a day in and day out basis, we think this is going to be one of those things that is going to really make this version of After Effects feel different from what you've worked on in the past. Now, another thing that we have been working on is improving the workflow when you have to deal with effects, things like displacement maps. These are effects that typically reference other layers within a composition. And when you wanted to add effects to those layers and you wanted the displacement map to be affected by them, you typically had to pre-compose things. You had to start nesting things in subcomps. And everybody kind of gets, I wish I didn't have to do that. We've changed the way this works, so now you don't have to. So just as a quick example here, I'm going to solo this layer. Now this particular graphic is, it's using a layer as a displacement map to create these little analog glitches. And the way we're doing that is we're actually using a source that is comes from, there's some actual analog tape glitches. Now, I like what this is doing, but I actually want to put an effect over the top of this. I'm going to go to my effects, and I want to get something that looks like lines in this. So really quickly, I'll use a checkerboard. Let's just change this. And we'll make this more like something that kind of is glitchy, has these different lines in it. Now, if I want this adjustment to be affected by that, in the past, I would have to pre-compose this. But now, in the effect controls, we now have a new control for this. You'll see under displacement map layer, I can change this to include effects on layer 7 of the comp. So what this means is, without having to pre-compose this, without having to make a nested composition, now I've got these glitches taking advantage of those lines that I generated, and we've kind of made the glitchy effect look more like scan lines. So again, simple, tiny things, but these are things that you do over and over again. So we really want to try and address the top issues in this release of things that you guys are saying, this kind of slows me down a little bit. Now, another thing that you're seeing in this version of After Effects is I'm actually taking advantage of GPU acceleration. So in the past, we introduced the idea that within the project settings, we now have the same choices for what's called Mercury GPU acceleration that exists over inside of Adobe Premiere. So the Mercury engine has come to After Effects. And each release, we are introducing more and more GPU accelerated effects inside of After Effects. This release introduces a number of new effects, including things like drop shadow, gradient ramps, levels, something you guys use day in and day out. Let me show you fractal noise. In fact, I'll use this comp here just for the sake of time. So this particular comp, we're adding a little bit of fractal noise on one of the layers here. I'll just scroll down to the fractal noise here. We just wanted to create some sort of burnishing on the background here, kind of age this a little bit. And I can actually take the evolution adjustment here, and you can see that I'm changing that while this is playing back to try and get what I think is the right setting for this. So when you're using GPU accelerated effects, again, you get much faster performance than you would otherwise. Let me just show you how you can tell what is GPU accelerated. I'll pull up fractal noise over here in the effects and presets. And if you look at this, you'll see that there is a little icon. This is the same icon used in Adobe Premiere for highlighting that this is a GPU accelerated effect. So again, more GPU acceleration in After Effects than ever before. Now, I want to talk a little bit about something that we always try and include in a release of After Effects. This is sort of the magic stuff that can help fix certain issues, certain problems that we all run into, that we all face. Oftentimes, we've got footage that looks something like this, where we're still kind of fidgeting with the camera. Maybe this is the only shot where we happen to get the action that's happening. I've had in live sporting events, there's been plenty of times where I'm still messing with the camera, and something interesting happens, and I wish I could rescue a particular shot. You all know the warp stabilizer. We've had the warp stabilizer in Premiere and After Effects for a while, but one of the challenges that the warp stabilizer could not fix is what I like to refer to as the buzz. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's a stabilized shot where the camera got knocked hard enough that it caused a momentary blurring of frames. So if I pause on one of these, you'll be able to see this here. I'll just roll this right there. You see how we go from like relative sharpness here, really blurry, and then it quickly recovers? So that typically would prevent a lot of people from even using this shot. But we've now created a new effect, which is called camera shake de blur. I'm just going to take this effect and drag it and drop it on here. And right away, you're starting to see a difference with this. I'm just going to tweak these settings a little bit. Let's give it a little bit longer duration to fix. And we'll set this to a higher quality mode just to give you the full effect of this. What this effect does is it's using a form of pixel motion to recreate the blurry frames based on the information on the left side and the right side of the frames. It's artificially generating the frames in between and replacing the blurry bits for you automatically. So I'm just going to turn this off. Before, after. Before, after. Magic. For any of you who do documentary work, this is something, if you've ever done handheld work, had to warp stabilize it. I've seen stuff like this. This particular buzzy effect is even in a couple of finished shots in a feature film that was released a few years ago. This is the type of effect that would take care of that. It just removes it completely from the shot. Okay, I've got 10 minutes left. I've got a couple more cool things to show you. How many want scopes in After Effects? Show of hands. You've got scopes in After Effects. Thank you. We have scopes in After Effects. These are the Lumetri scopes, which originated in Adobe SpeedGrade. Again, SpeedGrade still exists as a product. It's still part of Creative Cloud. We don't have a new release for it this cycle, but the color engine work that was done in SpeedGrade now exists in both Premiere Pro and inside of After Effects. The Lumetri effect that you know of in the Lumetri panel in Premiere Pro is a GPU accelerated effect in After Effects, and now we've also taken the scopes and brought them over as well. So right now we're looking at a RGB waveform view. I could break this into a parade view. Maybe I want to add a vector scope. Maybe I want to add a histogram. These are all customizable, and they're all designed to play as real-time as After Effects plays real-time, which is way more than before. Typically now you can drag and drop video clips like MP4 files and just hit play and get real-time performance. Now, there's lots of different options for these. There's presets in here for different types of layouts. I can go to an all scope, so you can have up to 5 different scopes inside of the Lumetri Scopes panel. This is something that you can even blow up full screen if necessary, if you really want to dial this in and look at. I've got this in 8-bit mode now, but it supports 32-bit float. It supports HDR. So if you're working with HDR, high dynamic range footage, we actually have scopes that support high dynamic range content. And yeah, it's awesome to have scopes finally directly inside of After Effects. You don't have to use any special plugins. You don't have to do anything fancy. All right. Really quickly, I think Jason showed you some of how Adobe Stock is integrated. We do have some changes to how Stock works. I'm going to go ahead and just quickly show you how to preview Stock. If I go over to a Libraries panel, and I just recently moved back to California from Singapore, so I'm going to do a search on Singapore. Maybe I want to bring up some video here from Singapore. One of the things that you'll notice is I can filter this just by videos, and Stock now offers what we call hover scrub behavior. So if I need to preview a particular video clip, if I want to get a sense of the motion of this time lapse, I can just roll my mouse across this little preview thumbnail and make a decision whether I want to use this or not. If I want to use this as a clip, I can just drag it and drop it right into my project, and there is a progress bar within After Effects to download the watermarked version. You can do an unlimited number of those that you want. When you're ready to purchase the clips that you're using, there's a simple one-click license this from your Adobe Stock account. It'll tell you how much that is, tell you if it's going to use your credits up, and at that point, it automatically replaces the low-res watermarked version with the high-res. So if you've used it in a composition, if you used it in dozens of compositions within your project, it's a one-click to replace it. All of those locations, it'll be replaced. The watermark will go away. You own the footage. You're ready to go. All right. Motion graphics. Now, how many of you guys were here for Jason's motion graphics when he's talking about motion graphics in Premiere? There's a lot you can do with Premiere with motion graphics. In fact, one little thing I always like to call out is that Adobe Premiere actually uses the same type of keyframes as Adobe After Effects. If you go into the effect controls, you have things like ease in, ease out behavior, and a lot of times you can copy stuff from Premiere directly over into After Effects. If you ever tried doing that with the old titler in Premiere, you know that that just didn't happen. You couldn't bring those titles over, you had to recreate them. Now you can, which is actually pretty cool. I'm going to start with a really simple motion graphic that I'm going to put together here. One of the things that sets After Effects apart for doing motion graphics is the fact that you can do a lot of procedural motion graphics. You can do things tying different properties together in ways to automate certain processes. And we use something called expressions to do this. Now, if you hear the word expression and you immediately go, uh-oh, keep in mind, a lot of expressions are out there online that you literally just copy and paste into a layer to get some kind of special behavior. Now, normally this would be something that I could build over in Adobe Premiere. However, I've got this rigged in such a way that this little red line, that's actually a shape layer, is actually the length of that shape layer is tied using a little tiny bit of code here. It's actually tied to the length of the text in the name field. So that automatically scales and sizes based on the name of the text. You can't do something like that in Premiere. Definitely can do it inside of After Effects. Now, what we've introduced with motion graphic templates is we now have a way of exporting this out into a template file that'll pop into a library, pop into the Essential Graphics panel over in Premiere Pro, and give the editor control of certain parameters. You, as the motion graphics artist, get to decide what the editor can change. You also get to decide what they can't change, and that's an important thing to note. If you've ever had to keep people on a particular style guide, you want to keep them on brand, sometimes you give them an After Effects project, they know just enough to be dangerous and start going in and tinkering and tweaking with things, and the next thing you know, there's like, what's this Gothic font doing on air? That's not what I approved. So with motion graphic templates, you have the ability to lock things down and provide a simple control panel. So I'm going to build one of these out using this simple example that I have here. I'm just going to right-click on this in my bin. I'm going to choose Open in Essential Graphics. That's going to open up something called the Essential Graphics panel inside of After Effects. Now, this can also be used if you're generating and creating complex compositions that you have to hand off to another motion graphics artist. All of us we have our own techniques for how we do things inside of After Effects. If you've ever gotten somebody else's After Effects comp and spent an hour or two digging through layers to find, how is he doing that one thing in the corner there? This Essential Graphics panel can be used just to provide some simple controls for somebody else to use your composition in After Effects as well. But we're talking a lot about using it in Premiere because everything that we put in this also shows up in Premiere Pro when we create the motion graphic template. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to start by, let's give this a different name. I'll call this one Monday. And I'm going to click this button here to Solo Supported Properties. So this is going to let me know what I can add and what I can't add. So I'm going to add the color of that line. And we can call this something more real world so that the editor knows what we're talking about. And then I'll come down here to my source text for the title. And again, we're going to label this properly. And I'll do that one more time for the name. Now, if I want to test this out, like maybe I want to change the default name here and see how that expression is working, I can easily do that. And now I can see that the line has automatically resized. So again, even inside of After Effects, the Essential Graphics panel comes in handy. But where this, and I can also add comments. This gives me the ability to say, you know, use this one, Carl. Okay. So anytime you want to add comments for other artists, for editors to see, you can put that in here as well. Now, the real magic comes in when I export this out. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And now I get to choose where to save it. Now, I could definitely save it to a local drive, and it will create something called a .mogrt file, a motion graphic template file. That's really kind of old school thinking. It's a lot easier to share these by adding them to a library and then sharing that library. And it's even possible to make a library that is read-only so that the graphics artists can go in and delete stuff and move stuff and add things to it. The editors can just add them to their projects, but they can't actually go in and add things to that library. So you can always keep people on brand. I'm going to go ahead and add this to my library. Click OK. There I have Monday here inside of my library panel in After Effects. But more importantly, when I switch over to Premiere and go to my libraries, there's the Monday graphic. No, not yet, not yet. I'm almost done. Oh, all right, stick around for just 1 second. Here's the Essential Graphics panel inside of Premiere Pro. You can see the same controls. I can come in here and change that to a blue line if I wanted to. I can change the title. I can change the name. Very, very simple. Now let me show you what you can do if you really get into the idea of rigging these things together. I'm going to jump into a much more complicated version of this. Let's go into the Gold Rush template. And I'm also going to open this in the Essential Graphics panel as well. Now this particular graphic has all kinds of GPU accelerated effects going on, but more importantly, it's got a whole series of nested compositions within comps so that the background is actually something like 11 different layers that can be swapped out using the Essential Graphics panel, basically just turning opacity on and off on different stills. I've got different graphic styles built into this. So these controls that you see here, you have these same controls over in Adobe Premiere. So for example, the background, you'll notice I have a simple control here called background image, and it's currently on background number 9. Well, what happens if I change that? Oh, there's a nice one. How about this one? Oh, let's try this one. So you can see how I can cycle through these. So now I can deliver one file, one template, to my editors, and they have the ability to pick between all of the different graphic styles. Or if I have to audition these to a producer and say, what do you like? You know, how about, I don't know, how about this one? No? All right, how about this one? And it's all one file. So the same controls, if I switch back over to Premiere, here's that same graphic playing back over in Premiere, currently using graphic style number 1. And I can go in here and let's change the background tint color. Maybe we want to go kind of double down on that sort of sepia color. And at the same time, I don't like that background image. Let me go ahead and change it here. There was that one of the church. I want to use the one of the church. Up, I went to one too many. There it is. And this graphic style, there's one in here that's got these little accents, these really nice little black and, there we go. And again, the text is editable. The episode number is editable. So as a motion graphics artist, you now have the ability to create these motion graphic template files. You can provide them to editorial. You can share them via libraries. You can store them in your own Essential Graphics panel, so they'll show up in the Essential Graphics panel inside of Premiere. And all of this shipping as of last Wednesday. You guys are still sitting here. I'm going to show you one more thing really quickly. Jason mentioned this, and I didn't get a chance to show it to you. I kind of rushed through it here. You can build these motion graphics with audio. So if I bring up my audio here, this particular one, I've just added a few sound effect files to kind of match the little glitches. I could save that in a library. Where did I get these little sound effects? Well, for staying as late as you have today, I'm going to tell you a little secret. If you are a Creative Cloud member, type into Google Adobe Audition Sound Effects. As a Creative Cloud member, we don't ship with these sound effects because they're gigs worth of sound effects. There's tens of thousands of these sound effects. But they're still technically included with Adobe Audition. You simply have to go to this website and pick and choose what you want to download, and they are completely royalty-free as part of your Creative Cloud membership. Guys, I'm completely out of time. Thank you guys so much.